Hi, everyone. I'm here today to talk to you about the Coracle. So, for those of you that have been reading my Substack or that know me from events, live events here on the Big Island or in Rhode Island on Block Islands, you've probably heard me talk about the Coracle or read some of the promotions that I sent out when I was offering it last year. So, this is a body of work that I've been developing like really for my whole life, but that I really started actively putting together with the idea of like launching it into the world to serve people about 2 years ago this summer. So I spent a really long time on the website and like downloading what the program was going to be. Um and I really did have the intention, and this is going to be me exposing myself, that this is going to be a business and I was going to make money from it, and it was gonna move me out into, like, the life of my dreams, like, the career of my dreams where I felt like I was, like, working, like, my highest purpose, and I would be financially supported by that. And I launched it, I did all the things that you do, all the promoting and social media and, like, the certain amount of, emails you gotta send out to convert people, blah, blah, blah. And, a few people signed up, and it was amazing, like, really, really amazing. I also worked with a couple people one-on-one before I did the group journey online. So a few people, obviously, it's not enough to sustain me financially, so I've been working full time while I was doing this. So in my mind, I was thinking like, "Okay, I don't really wanna keep doing this because it's too much work for the financial output I'm getting, input." And then I realized that wasn't really it either. Like what was really going on for me? There's it's a long process of me like coming onto here right now to say that um I'm really ready to share this experience again with people in a different way, in a way that I think feels more in alignment with what the original vision of like what really wants to come through me. And what that means is like I'm going to be offering this for free here on my Substack. I don't have a large audience out there in the world that wants to pay me a bunch of money to like do a program with me. Like I'm not famous, and I'm totally cool with that. I do have like a fair size amount audience of people that I'm hoping will show up if this is free and tell their friends and keep doing it. And I promise you that the my agenda for do that is not to like offer you a free class to like expand my audience or like later down the road when I ask you to like sign up for a $500 class. Like that's not what this is about. I really feel that I believe in this journey, this vehicle of the Coracle so much that I want to offer it no matter what. Like I want to put it out there and I want you to come no matter what your financial circumstances are. And as well as that, I could also tell from the first time I offered it that I really emphasized that this was a really potentially powerful initiatory journey that people will be invited to go on. And I was really like focused on setting on keeping that safe, which is a good thing I was doing. Like I wanted to keep this safe for everybody, like a really safe container. So I required a lot of everybody that signed up. There was like 3 months of, like, coming on Zoom once a week and, like, working in ceremony with the stories and, like, really, there was a lot. I was, like, really kind of, like, setting up a lot of protocol with a good intention because I wanted to keep everybody safe, and I can also see that I wanted to get results. So I was, like, stacking the deck so people would have the strongest experience, and that's a ego flaw of mine in this process. Um, I know now that I can create this container and make it safe without I'm thinking inside, I'm thinking as I speak, without requiring this like kind of like rigid commitment that I was asking before from people. So, what I'm going to be doing is putting out. one story a month. So maybe I should just, I'm going to backtrack a little bit. So maybe I should describe for you, for those of you who are like new and have never seen any of my info about the Coracle. The Coracle is, I actually like wrote it down because it's one of the hardest things about this was defining what it was. Like I spent months like defining what this was. Like I knew how it worked. I knew how it worked, but to get the words exactly right. But what this is, it's an alchemical vessel that's powered. Like every vessel has a power. Like a sailboat has winds, or and a powerboat has a diesel engine. A tanker has an engine, and a coracle itself, which is the skin boats, a skin boat of old Britannia, probably all of Northern Europe, but I know specifically the Cura in Ireland and the Coracle, in the Celtic lands. It's a small skin boat, and it was paddled like in the shape of a figure eight with an oar. It's a small round boat that it's a pico, a naval that a person sat in and they paddled. And in this motion, they tapped into the spiral reality, the spiral dimension of reality, which is the truth of the way that time operates in our universe. It's not, we don't live in like a linear universe. That's an illusion. So the coracle, just by the very motion, if you're in this vessel here on the computer with me, you're going to be invited to tap into this kind of motion, like moving through you, through the power of fairy tales and folk tales. So, I've done a lot of work with fairy tales and folk tales my whole life. As a child, I just love them. It was just, a natural attraction as a child. And then, like a lot of, I think that in particular, a lot of young adults, male and female, got into like fantasy, fantasy literature. A lot of people, got into that through like Lord of the Rings and Tolkien, but there's a lot of authors that I got into through that. And then there was the study of mythology. Eventually I met Martin Shaw in about like 20 years ago now. And I became part of the Great Mother Conference, and which was a conference founded by by Robert Bly 50 years ago. So if you don't know about that, it's still going on. You could go. And I was really fortunate to be in the field, listening for 15 years to like really great storytellers, to Robert Bly and Joya Timpanelli, and then Martin. And then Martin was coming to Block Island, where I lived, um, for about 30 years as well. So all that time I was listening to stories, and I was invited. I didn't understand what was going to happen when I sat down to like listen to stories, but in these like group containers that I was in, the stories activated a field of community transformation that was like bespoke to each individual there. So I got to watch this play out for years, where people, just by listening to stories that were held a certain way, were able to go through a personal transformation that also affected the collective. And from there, we all spread out year after year into like our other communities, which has that ripple effect, which is what's needed on our planet right now. We need to increase the ripples of those of us who are ready to fully embody our energetic masculine and feminine and move into a place where we're in like what the Hawaiians call the amakua, where we're like guided by the spirit and we're like an embodied soul. So I did that for years and years, and I never thought that I would become a storyteller until finally I started hearing the call, and I ignored it. I was terrified. I was absolutely terrified to speak and tell a story. I was like, no way. I'd like given up on that dream. And then 2 years ago, I was invited by this dear woman who is the manager of the New Thought Church here in Kealakekua, to be. She read a review of my book Pico, and she asked me if I would come and be presenter at New Thought. And I know, like I'm not really a person that gives talks or speeches. I am giving you one right now, but at that point, it wasn't like something I was at all comfortable with doing. You know how some people can just get up there and talk and they're just really good at it and really interesting? I knew that was out of my range of possibility at that time. So I said to this really like fairy godmother, I could come and I could tell a story. And I did, and I haven't looked back since. Um, so as I was going through this process with the stories and like stepping into a storyteller, I was also in collaborative mentorship with Keone Hanalei of Pohala Hawaiian Botanicals, who is an incredible lineage carrier of the Mu Hawaiian tradition. And as I worked with him and like my freeing the blocks for me to access my inner feminine and masculine, it became more and more clear to me that the process that Keone was like guiding me through, which is grounded in the Hawaiian energy centers, like the concept of like masculine, feminine, and spirit, but with a interpretation that's like purely his. This path was in the fairy tales. This path to like self-realization, which leads to collective transformation, was in the fairy tales from my own culture. And I was really torn about like being in this lineage of like a culture that's not mine, especially as a person who is like, the descendants of people that like, not that my descendants didn't colonize Hawaii, but it's like I'm a white person and the white people are still colonizing Hawaii. So I was really torn about it. And I was really looking for a spiritual tradition that was from my ancestors in order for myself and also to offer that to other people who I feel like there's obviously there's like a deep longing for this right now in people from European descent to like know our ancestral roots and to know that we come from cultures that were guided by the indigenous soul, by the voice of the land. We have those traditions. We had initiation and all of the cultural memories of that are coded in the fairy tales of Europe. So when I was able to trace that path, I came up with the Coracle. I'm like, I really want to offer this. So the Coracle is working with like the spiritual technology of the fairy tale. And it's grounded in like very simple ceremonial protocols that I learned from Keone. Um, let's take a look at my little notes here. So, okay, so I wanted to talk about like there's kind of a I don't know if it's a split. Some people might see it as a split, and some people might see it as like more the better. But there's what I've noticed is there like when I started, the first exposure I had to the mythopoetic was in the late 1980s. I lived in Washington, D.C., and I worked at the Yes bookshop. It was like way ahead of its time. It was an esoteric bookshop founded in the 1970s, and it was really a mecca. Imagine this is like Washington, D.C. It's like the center of, the beast. And there's like this little occult bookstore down the side street in Georgetown that I ended up working at. It was like pure synchronicity magic how I ended up there. And one of the sections there was like mythology sections where I got exposed to all the Arthurian legends. There was mystical poetry. There was like Rosicrucianism, Blavatsky, theosophy, all the occult sciences, alchemy, and there was a Jungian psychology section. So that's where I got exposed to archetypal psychology from like reading while I was supposed to be like shelving books at the store. Nobody cared actually. It was like the coolest place to work ever. And then when I got to the Great Mother, I began this path that had been like, I jumped on this path that like Robert Bly had founded of like using the fairy tales to do psychological work, the psychological work. And it was incredibly deep and profound transformation for me and many people through this community. And I still think that's a very rich vein to explore. Um, and a lot of people are still doing that. And I could also see how this path wasn't quite embodied in the land. Fortunately for me, I was living in Block Island and I was able to anchor my transformation in a landscape as this land claimed me year after year as I walked, as I dreamed, as I rode my bike, as I worked there. I was like working with my hands in the land most of the time, like gardening or oyster farming, beekeeping. So I understood that like there was another dimension to this work beyond the psychology that when the stories were actually alive. And the way that I understood this is because the land would respond to the stories. Martin would come and tell a story, and then we would go for a walk, and then everything was talking to us. And then we could go through, the psychological transformation that was asked for us and do that work, do that healing work, for which for me was like really, really amazing to see what would happen for myself and for my community on Block Island, because there were a lot of us doing this. Um, And then I started getting into the work of Martin Prechtel. So some of you, I'm sure a lot of you know him as well from his incredible books. Uh, s- Most famous probably is Secrets of the Talking Jaguar, and from Bullard's Kitchen, the school that he ran for many years in New Mexico. And looking at stories like unstoried, and so I never went to Bullard's Kitchen. I almost signed up. I didn't go. I still like, but like it wasn't meant to be. But I have recently been listening to, I go online for this incredible woman named Stephanie Mackay, who was part of Bullard's Kitchen for like 13 years. So she's like, I would call her a lineage carrier of the kind of way of telling a story that Martine was promoting as a way to understand the stories as like a way to awaken our own as European listeners, like who've been divorced, who've lost our ceremonies, who've lost our rituals, who don't have initiation. It's a way to like by unpacking the stories, really like on an anthropological, historical level of like looking at the details of the story to understand what they meant in their time to the people that whose culture they represented at the genesis of these stories to understand how initiation ritual was encoded in those stories to keep the knowledge safe as empire came and took away the indigenous way of being in European culture. So when you listen to a story with Stephanie, um, you're gonna hear her afterwards like unpack that story on like the anthropological level, like what that meant, with the idea that the intention, as I understand her work, is to just sort of like have this like cascade of wonder and awe. That's how I've experienced to understand that my culture, and there's like an activation of self-esteem that happens through this. My culture had as much beauty and richness as the indigenous cultures that are still somewhat intact now that I've longed to have. And I have been a participant in cultural appropriation for sure in in my desires and longing to um to have that knowing that I come from something as beautiful as that. Like I don't have to be ashamed of my ancestors or my origins anymore. um it doesn't mean I don't have to take action in contemporary life now to make corrections any way that I can for the wrongs of the past, as they're like playing out in my life now. So this isn't just like a free pass kind of thing. So what I've developed in the Coracle is a path that will lead you, if you choose to come, on three journeys. And these are inspired by the three centers that Keone led me through, and others as well, that led me a journey. to embody these three centers, like activate them in my life so they could make that Hyros Gamos, the alchemical marriage, and from that deliver me into like the Amakua, into the third journey, which is when you're in fully alignment, when you've made that marriage of the masculine and feminine inside you. Keone was right. Your life is, you go into a flow, and what you need in life is delivered unto you. And I don't mean that's just like you get showered with pots of gold, because clearly I haven't been yet. But what's been delivered to me is this opportunity to like really examine like where I was coming from originally with this. There was like when I first devised the Coracle, I'm like, oh, it'll get me all money. It'll get me away from like the things I don't want to do. I was coming at it as an offering that would like, that had like elements of scarcity in it, and that there was like an agenda in it. Um, and it didn't mean that the offering wasn't good. It was just as good. But now I feel like with the energy that like I'm bringing behind it, just to like, I am offering this work as like a sincere offering from my heart and my soul, as like a fully embodied androgynous being. Like this is like me offering my fullest self. And there's like no price that can ever be put on that. There's no price. I am going to put a donation button on the videos, just so you know. So, cuz I am open if anybody like wants to contribute some dollars to my rent and my thriving in the world. That's totally fine. But it's just like I'm just open to the possibility. I'm not going for that. What I want is for people to show up, and I'm going to trust that the process, that like you don't have to come for the whole thing. At first I was like, I'm going to send out messages and tell people they have to message me, and I'll send them the Zoom link. And then I was going to have lives. I was going to be like, oh, and then cuz I was going to have everybody live. And then I was like realizing like when I really check in with myself, I don't like doing Zooms. I would rather like talk into a video right now without you there on the screen. Like I know a lot of people say like they would rather, storytellers, they would rather have people there that they're looking at. For me, that's a distraction. I don't know if it's like part of my like neurodivergence, but like I am like much better just like speaking into the camera now in my room with nobody there, and I can like send the energy out to whoever is needing to hear this. I'm much better I can do than if you're right there with me on the screen. So, I was like, I'm just going to send the videos out. There's not going to be links. There's not going to be a sign up. I'm going to put the videos out. They're going to be on my Substack. They're going to be public. You can share these with whoever you want. There's like no restrictions on this. I will, just so you know, be keeping the altar of the Coracle and feeding that altar in the 3D material world, maintaining the boundaries, and like and like working with the ceremony of the Coracle as as a vessel, the whole vessel. It's not going to be about me working with your individual energy. Your energies will flow in and out of it. I will be keeping the boundaries safe. You can trust that. But it's not going to be about me, because this is about like you really going through this activation, this process yourself, and empowering yourself to step into like your marriage, like your internal union. It's not about me holding the energy. So this is super healing for me, because I'm a person that like will give and give and give and give everything. And like I'm not going to be like that all up in your energy in this. Like I'm taking care of the coracle, and you're coming on that vessel. So I may not know you as individuals, but you can trust that this space, that this vessel, this container is held. Like that's my absolute commitment to you. That it's held in like the proper ceremonial protocol as I'm guided to keep this vessel intact. Um I will I will in the Substacks. I'll follow up with some suggestions. So when I worked with people online and individually, I give suggestions of like ways that you can work with the stories in order to like get them in order to activate like their presence in your lives. It's like they're going to be activated in your life anyway if you give your consent to that, which is another important aspect of this. You could just listen to the stories and as entertainment, and that's fine. But before I tell every story, I'm going to lead you through a process where you are going to like tap into your energetic masculine and feminine and see how much of the story you're available for to be in relationship, to have it move through you and for you to move through it. So these are all things, if you're familiar with Keone Hanale's way of holding a ceremony that I have received from him. So we're going to be working with that. Like you will have the opportunity to regulate and titrate how the story moves through your system. And it will be a reciprocal relationship. You are going to affect the story as well. And that's something like really important to remember, that you're listening to the story, feeds this story, and will feed your ancestors. Some of them who've are probably been like waiting for this for thousands of years for you to come back and remember this. Um, so that's going to be the first way, that first permission. You can also say no. You're going to be given the opportunity to say no. I'm just going to listen to this story. And then there'll be some practices that I'll share that you can go deeper with the story in easy ways each month as I tell a new story. So there's three aspects of this journey. The first is a journey to work with our internal feminine, and it's called the journey of safety and belonging. So this is definitely one of those trust the process kind of things. So I've chosen stories based on the way that I could see how they activated what my listeners needed to learn about where they didn't feel safe or belong in the world at the core level, at the core wounds. So we're dealing with core wounds here. This is serious work. And then through the process of like having that story go out into your field as far as you want it to in like your day-to-day interactions, being given the opportunities to work on those core wounds. So this is an activation that can be really powerful. So that's why I was really cautious about it the first time, because I've seen very dramatic things happen to people. I've had people like lose their housing. I've had even more dramatic than that, which I'm not going to share after like hearing the first story in this. Um I don't want to scare anybody, but like this is and I also have learned to hold the space better, by the way, as well. um so we're going to work with that, and then instead of like thinking about going into like understanding things like the way you would in a therapy session, the next story is going to carry the energy that will move you into the next phase of coming into the like really landing in your energetic feminine and the sacred feminine. So it's like the stories build on each other. This is a process. That's why I call it a technology. It's a spiritual technology of initiation. So I'm working with the stories which contain the cultural memories of initiation themselves, and then I've overlaid a process of initiation that I went through myself through my work with Keone, and then now it's like a way to so this is what I see like with the this is how I'll explain it best. So when I was doing the like mythopoetic work of just like working on the land with the stories of like what we would call the psychological work. It was very like ritualistic as well, but it wasn't like actively like working with ritual always. And when I started listening to Stephanie Mackay, I was talking about, of like who is presenting the stories not so much as as a ceremonial activation, but as like in fact she makes an attempt not to trigger people by giving you the story before you go to the class so you know what's in there. That's not something I do. Like this is a process where I'm telling the stories. Like you're not going to know what the story is before because I want you to in a sense get triggered so that you'll have the opportunity to like move beyond that. But we're going to keep it safe. We're going to keep that safe through your consent. Um but so what I've done is like I've taken the stories and made this process where so we're still working with like the facts of the story on the initiatory level, like the cultural anthropological facts of like what the stories represented. But this is like a new way. So like for example, like you listen to a story and you hear what it meant to the people in their time and you realize it meant like something completely different than like what it means to you now. Like and you're like, "Wow, that's what that meant for them?" And you're kind of like, "Well, how does that apply to my life now?" So what the Coracle does is it's a combination of like those two threads of the psychological and the ceremonial through this spiritual technology that like I traced coming from the incredibly like rich, beautiful Mu Hawaiian culture that Keone is sharing with people now, that Keone's sharing. It's incredible with the the images and the cultural memories of the European tradition. So this offering, I think, will have like particular resonance from people from with European descent. But I also think because this process of initiation is hardwired into the human being, if you are from a culture and you don't have, if you're from a culture that you're not European and you feel like you don't have like a tradition, this is a place that you might find what you're looking for within that as well. So I don't want to say like this isn't like just for people of European descent. Like anybody is welcome in this space as a participant or as a witness. Um, let's see what else I want to share. So I'm so excited about this. I'm like so excited. I was gonna wait. I had this idea. I'm like, oh, I'll launch a Zoom thing in the fall. And I'm like, no way. This is like the Aries energy is like coming in hot right now. Like I'm gonna do this. It's spring in Hawaii. It's Ku. See, it's like the half of the year ruled by Ku. It's like activation. This is the time. It's gonna be like 1 month. There's absolutely no like logistical difficulties about this, which I like. That's another reason with the Zoom. I'm like Zoom link, like organizing emails. No, like I'm gonna put this out. It's gonna be on my Substack. You'll get a story once a month. The journey of safety and belonging. I think it's 7 stories. I might add another one. It's like I often feel as I'm like feeling into the energy of a journey that another story is needed. The second journey which is the journey of the masculine, is the journey of open-hearted action. I think that's another 6 or 7 stories. I'm not sure. As again, I'll be flexible. So this is a long journey. It can also be asynchronous. I'm just going to trust that you show up for the story that you need to hear. And then the third journey is the journey of purpose and flow. And I've actually not ushered anybody as a group through that yet. I've done some individual work with people. So that's going to be a first for all of you to go through that with me. I have some ideas about it, but it hasn't been time yet. So that's going to be really exciting to do. So this is a long project. This is a long, not in like geological time, but in terms of like modern day life. This is, I'm looking at a year and a half maybe of doing this. So it'll be out once a month on my Substack, and I really hope that, what do I really hope? I want to be really honest here because I wanted to say, like, I really hope that you join me. It's like I'm so deprobing myself from marketing things that like I never connected with anyway. That's why marketing doesn't work. But what I really want is like, I hope that you connect with the sincerity of my intent to offer something really beautiful. This is like a contribution from my soul. What I'm offering here, it's like this is the story of like my journey and my struggle. And it's a map that I created out of that I know has the potential to help not just you as individuals, but humanity as a collective. And as humanity as a collective goes through, if we can return to this like inner marriage again and be guided by the Amakua, by the spirit, our outside world will change. The wars that are, the manifestation of like our inner conflicts, they'll dissolve. This may not happen in our lifetime. It may not happen ever. We may just completely blow everyone up and like destroy the planet. But I've felt the call. I've felt the call to like make this contribution from my heart, knowing that this is like something really beautiful that we can offer in a time when there's a lot of ugliness in the world, and that this is like a gift to life itself. We're not here. We're not here to like stay in this separation, like this connection from Earth. This is like a great time of remembering. We have the potential now. I don't even know what we have the potential to do. I don't know if I have the words for it because it's not about doing. It's about like, all I know is like my step. Like my step. I'm going step by step now. And that's why I'm making this video tonight and not waiting. I got the call. I'm like, I got to do this tonight. Because, I work today. Like, I didn't want to do this tonight, but like, I got to do this tonight. We're in a time right now where like things are really unclear. There's all these prophecies, there's all these people, there's all these channelers. People are saying it could go this way, it could go that way. And a lot of people are really sure, like it's gonna be like this, you know, like like this spiritual teacher saying this and that. And like honestly, like I don't think we know what's going to happen. We need to become the prophets now and channel that vision of what could happen in order to like imprint that into like the field of possibility. And the way that we can do that I see at least, is to be really practical and follow one step at a time of like how we receive what we're supposed to do. This is the way of all my like body work sessions have been going lately. Especially as I move into like more subtle work, away from like traditional massage, which even then I'm still doing it. It's like I don't work with a routine. I'm listening, and sometimes it just comes through really quickly in my hands, or I'm listening like on another level, on a slower level, and I trust where my hands are supposed to go, and I see the results of how that affects people that I work with as a body worker. And I know that the coracle, if I can operate that way and invite you to do that as well, we will be on a path together. I don't want to say potential. It's not a path that will create a potential that's putting too much pressure on it. But I know we'll be in on a journey in a vessel of where we'll be on in the path of the soul together. And to create more space for that to like come into the body. This is about embodying the soul and being embodied in the earth soul. So it's not just about like our own individual growth. It's about becoming a strong enough vessel, an illuminated vessel to plug back in to Gaia, into Mama Earth, into, Haumea. So that's what this is. I know I am a very associative speaker. I know I wander all over the place. Um, for those of you who don't like that style of speaking or telling a story, that's okay. Um, you probably don't want to be in the coracle. That's cool. Or maybe you're curious and you want to come listen some more. Just know that you don't have to understand everything I'm saying. Being curious about it is enough. All right. So I'm going to end this now and say thank you for tuning in here tonight and stay tuned for the first story, which it's gonna be launched sometime in the next week. I'm gonna send the first story out. All right. Thank you very much for being here and many blessings on your journey, whether or not you join me or not. Thank you.